Hello everyone, my name is Akshay. I work with Pepper Content. Pepper Content is, after making serious inroads in the content ecosystem and industry in India and the US, is now expanding into Southeast Asia and Middle East. And as part of that initiation into the region, I'm very excited to have with us here as our first ever guest on Global Marketing Leaders, happy to introduce Richa Goswami. She comes from a long line of firsts. She was the first Chief Marketing and Brand Officer at Fidelity. She was the first Chief Customer and Marketing Officer at HSBC. She is the first woman of Indian origin who is on the board of EQT. And for those of you who don't know, EQT is one of the largest private equity funds globally. So she comes from a long list of firsts in very prominent global organizations where she has driven digital transformation and business transformation together. She and I worked in many capacities. She and I worked together in Standard Chartered, where she was launching the first ever global proposition for next-gen bankers. She and I worked together in J&J, where she was, again, the first ever Chief Digital Officer. And then, of course, we've worked together in Fidelity as well. She has been my boss. She is a mentor. She is a global transformation leader. And I can also very safely say she's a very dear friend who has been a big influence in my personal professional journey as well for the last 2 decades. So I'm really excited to have her here with us. And I hope you find her insights helpful in whatever you're trying to achieve in your careers. I surely have. So should we get started, Richa?
Yeah.
Okay. First question. So you've come from Goa, the most beautiful province of India.
The place to be.
The place to be. It's beautiful. It was a Portuguese colony for those of you who don't know. And it is a really beautiful part of the country. If you've never had a chance to go there, you should. And from there, she's moved to many different leadership roles across the world.
Yeah.
So coming from Goa, going to companies like HSBC, J&J, Fidelity, and now EQT, what are some of the core values and early experiences that have been the bedrock of your truly remarkable trajectory and continue to drive your decisions wherever you go?
When I think of two things that have really shaped who I am, the journeys I've been on, I would think of curiosity. Being the first one. And, when you grow up in a small town, you're left to your own devices to entertain yourself. And I think I learned really early on to ask questions, to challenge norms, to explore paths that weren't obvious or well-trodden. And that deep-seated curiosity, I think, continues to guide me, whether it's, to understand emerging technologies, whether it's consumer behavior shifts, whether it's social dynamics behind system changes. So I think curiosity has been the first. But then curiosity on its own isn't enough, right? It's no use being curious if you're not going to do anything about it. And I think it walks hand in hand with courage. So my 2 C's are curiosity and courage. And I think courage is the courage to speak up when it's uncomfortable, the courage to take risks when the outcomes are uncertain. It's the courage to back people, to take first chances, to give first chances. And I think both of these values, the curiosity and courage, I think they really help me ask the difficult questions at times and listen deeply. But then it also helps me to back solutions that I think are going to drive impact and are innovative. So curiosity, courage.
Can I add a third C?
Tell me.
Creative.
Yeah.
So we'll delve a bit into your creative streak in the subsequent questions, but where did that come from?
I think the creative part, it's an interesting one because I think I'm a very visual person. And I think there is this childlike wonder and curiosity within me. So I don't set boundaries maybe, and I don't let them define me. And I'm always trying to think of what if or what could be, and I don't have the fear of failing, and we all do to some extent, but I think failure has not defined me, and that sets you free.
Yeah.
So when you back yourself, I just think of it as a learning opportunity, and I think, let's just give it a shot, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't. And I think it's been one of the most liberating things for me, and I think empowering for the teams that I've built, and we've done a lot of that together.
Okay. Fair enough. Now, 2 years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, you had written a letter to your younger self.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting, emotional, passionate piece of writing. It spoke about loss, resilience, breaking barriers. If your younger self could respond to you today, what do you think she would say, and what part of your journey would she be most proud of?
I could do a hug from the younger Richa. I think she's come a long way. And I think she would say that, this little girl from a small town did eventually make a big difference in people's lives and in the world. And I think she'd be most proud of the fact that she didn't lose herself, and she stayed true to who she was. And that when things got, I think dire, she stayed hopeful. And when life took her to dizzying heights, she stayed humble.
Okay. Now, getting a bit more functional, I would say. So you've held multiple C-suite roles, HSBC, Fidelity, J&J, and you've been quite a trailblazer in digital transformation. Can you share a key principle or approach you've always used to redefine what's possible?
I've always been very, very curious about the why we do the what we do. And people get very seduced by technology, right? So it's really easy to come and throw all these acronyms at me. But frankly, I'm like, why would the customer give a toss? And I think we forget about the customer, and we forget about what are their needs and what are their delight factors. And, what is the unmet need, or what is the truth that we're not seeing that we can cater to? And I would always ask these questions, but then I think Stanford to the rescue. They've got this fabulous framework, the Stanford Design Thinking Framework. And I think that really speaks to me because you start with empathizing, and it's really around fully understanding, what is the experience of the user for whom you're designing what you're designing? What are their pain points? How do they think? What do they want? And then you can start from that. You can ideate, then you design, then you prototype, and then you pivot. And I think that's how one should think about customer experience, because I don't think that people buy the products you sell. I used to say it's the stories we tell, which I still feel, but it's also the experience that they have, and that's intangible. So I think the Stanford Design Thinking, and when I was at HSBC, I had the entire organization get that certificate. And I think for the listeners, it's a great way to think about how you create experiences for end users. So that's what's really helped me if I had to think of a framework.
Can you give me one example of where it's worked?
Oh, yeah. I'll give you a really simple one. As a bank, you can imagine we've got a lot of tech that is outdated. And you've had people go into branches till we had digital disruption to fill out a form and open an account. Now, what banks have done is that they've taken that old tech, they've taken the old processes for the same or new customer, and they've put that into a PDF, and they assume a customer is going to open an account. But then come the digital natives, right? Like a Monzo, and they think of it completely different. So they take 2 minutes to open an account, whereas honestly, an HSBC would take, sometimes a month and sometimes 15 days, which is ridiculous, honestly, right? So I remember, and it sounds so basic because your first interaction with the bank is opening an account. And if that is painful, why would you trust them with your money?
Yep.
Right? So it was really around using design thinking and using around and being the word I'm looking for is agile. Truly, from the way you set your teams up. And the end result is we did exactly that. So we pivoted and we launched a new mobile banking. Our accounts now take a couple of minutes. But that, I think, was a game changer for us, because I always say just because you've been around as a brand for 150 years does not mean you will be around for the next 150 years
absolutely.
if you don't pivot and become relevant to the consumer of today. And I think a lot of big brands, we tend to get really arrogant about our right to existence, till you get Merrill Lynch or Kodak. So I just think rather than get there, start thinking with the customer at the heart and then actually building experiences for them.
Got it. Customer first, enable technology, use technology to enable the customer experience.
Absolutely.
Very good. Now, you've been in multiple global regional roles, and we've both experienced this firsthand, and most global organizations do so as well. What have been some of the culture-related challenges that you may have experienced, and how do you navigate them and maintain brand consistency at the same time?
I think for me, the first most important thing is a brand needs to be purpose-led. Truly purpose-led. Because when you are truly purpose-led, what you will realize is that a strong global brand speaks with one voice, but listens in many languages. Because your purpose resonates with people irrespective of where they come from. And I think the most important thing that at least I realized is that when you lead global marketing organizations, you've got to honestly balance between consistency on one hand and cultural sensitivity on the other. And the most effective strategy that at least I've found is once you've got a clear purpose, you then empower the local teams to adapt the execution with cultural intelligence. Because you need to be able to, end of the day, have a brand that resonates with the end user. So as long as you've got the global purpose, you know what your guidelines are, you know what the brand needs to look and feel, the execution of a campaign, for example, needs to take in the cultural intelligence. And I think, so it's not for me about control, but it's about coherence, with flexibility. You need to be able to have that pivot. If not, you might have a great brand, but it just won't connect.
Coherence,
and brands have to speak to your heart,
Okay. Now, I know this project is really close to your heart. I was a relatively silent onlooker when I saw this story unfold. Project Free Period.
Yeah.
So, Project Free Period redefined what periods in menstruation actually means.
Yeah.
Moved from embarrassment to a tool of empowerment.
Yeah.
What was the genesis of this idea?
It's a deeply personal campaign for me. I'm an Indian woman. I'm an Indian daughter, a daughter-in-law, Indian mom, and I have kids. And when I look at different parts of a society, The idea for Project Free Period really came from a very simple and radical observation. The question is, most women hate their periods. In the sense, it's a time of the month, they feel uncomfortable, and they wish they did not have it. But there's only one sector of society that actually looks forward to their periods, and that's the commercial sex workers. And that's because that's the time of the month that they get to be a daughter, they get to be a mother, they get to be a lover. And so the question that we asked ourselves is, what if we could turn the very time society sees a woman at her weakest into her most powerful? And so we started thinking about how could we train them, how could we empower them, and we did a lot for them to learn life skills that if they so chose to leave the life that they were in, they could. And I just feel that, it's very easy to want to jump in and solve a problem. But what if you could reimagine it? And what if you could do it where storytelling met your soul? And I think that's when great things happen, and I just feel that we reframed that break as a chance to do things differently and to transform shame into self-worth, and to be part of something of that magnitude was so humbling, because there's so much that we take for granted. And I feel this work just really showed me the power of storytelling. It showed me the power of being courageous. I still remember, Akshay, when I had to send the video for Cannes. And they said, well, you're going to be the face of that video. And I remember thinking, our brand was the number one brand in the market. Our sales were great. We had no reason not to do yet another campaign where a girl is wearing a white salwar kameez or playing badminton or trying to do horse climbing and showing there was no leakage, Yeah. And here I am talking about commercial sex workers. And I remember thinking this is either going to be a make or a break. But therein comes the belief. If you genuinely believe that this is something that is worth taking the chance on, if you genuinely believe that you can be, the walk the talk on change, then why wouldn't you? So I did. I mean, the rest has been phenomenal, but I just feel that we got to do something meaningful.
Got it.
So it meant a lot.
ये सवाल अब मैं हिंदी में पूछूंगा.
पूछिए.
Project Free Period.
बताइए.
Now, ये आइडिया कहाँ से आया?
आइडिया बहुत सिंपल था. जब आप सोचते हो लड़कियों के बारे में, आप उन्हें पूछो कि आप आपको क्या होता है जब पीरियड्स होते हैं, तो सब बहुत कंप्लेन करते हैं, हम कपड़े नहीं पहन सकते, हम ये नहीं कर सकते, हम घर के बाहर नहीं जा सकते, कुछ शहरों में हम किचन में नहीं जा सकते. और आप सोचते हो कि ठीक है, सब कंप्लेन कर रहे हैं. पर फिर मेरी एजेंसी ने बोला कि पता है, हमने रिसर्च किया है और सारी औरतें नहीं कंप्लेन करती. मैंने कहा क्या मतलब है इसका? उन्होंने बोला अगर आप सोचो कि जो कमर्शियल सेक्स वर्कर्स हैं जो रेड लाइट एरिया में, दे एक्चुअली से कि ग्रेट, हमारा टाइम ऑफ द मंथ है. तो मैंने कहा क्यों? तो उन्होंने कहा क्योंकि छुट्टी मिलती है. मैंने कहा छुट्टी? तो उन्होंने कहा हाँ, कि जो मन में आए करो. वो 2, 3, 4 दिन उनका जो मन में आए वो रेस्ट कर सकते हैं, वो आपके बच्चों के से जाके अपने बच्चों से मिल लें, जो उनके मन में आए कर सकते हैं. तो फिर मैंने सोचा कि क्यों नहीं वो जो दिन है हम उन्हें वो मौका दे कि वो कुछ कर सके, वो कुछ सीख सकें. और एंड दैट्स हाउ द आइडिया केम अबाउट, कि अगर वो चाहते हैं कि उनको नहीं करनी जो वो कर रहे हैं, वो कर सकते हैं. पर ऑल्सो मौका है कि उनके बच्चे उनकी तरफ देख सकते हैं विद अ डिफरेंट लाइट. एंड काफ़ी साहस चाहिए था करने के लिए, आसान नहीं था. पर जब हम उनसे मिले और जो हमने किया था, इट वाज मेरे लिए तो मतलब
The rest is history. सब कुछ अच्छा निकला.
Exactly.
Very good.
Exactly.
Okay, next question. So you've been part of 2 Cannes winning campaigns, and the second one we'll talk right after this about. So they've both kind of balanced or trot the path between brand and activism.
Yep.
And there's a question which used to keep coming to even us when we work together.
Yeah.
Boss, where's the money? Where's the commercial success?
Yeah.
The social impact is good, but my CSR team will do it.
Yeah.
My product is still on the shelf.
Yeah.
So how have you been able to convince or talk to your stakeholders about the fact that, hey, how important purpose is to be inherent in every brand?
I love this question because I honestly, and you've heard me say this so many times, Akshay, I don't see commercial success and societal impact as opposing forces. I genuinely believe that they're increasingly interdependent.
Yeah.
And I think today's consumers and employees and shareholders, investors, they expect that brands will create value beyond profit. And I think the most resilient brands that we see today are those that are truly, that have embedded purpose, not as a campaign, but as a core strategic lens that guides from their recruitment to their innovation to their culture to their go-to-market and growth. So I just feel that purpose isn't about choosing between doing well and doing good. I think it's about doing both. And it's about doing it intentionally and consistently. And Connie Johnson, who's the founder of EQT, he always says doing good is good business. And he says it so beautifully. And it's such a simple phrase, but if you let it sink in, it's true.
Cool. Next question upset me mildly because I didn't know that you have been associated with the Cannes Gold Lion as well.
Yeah.
And kudos to the Pepper research team that they found this out. And I was like, whoa. And then I texted you, Richa, gold, Cub, when, how? So it's an achievement which is really rare and it doesn't come easily. So in your view, what distinguishes truly transformation strategy from conventional approaches, and how did that influence this?
I think the first thing we should all, as those of us, who are listening and our clients, one thing I would say is your agency partner. They're partners for a reason. One of the biggest mistakes, I think, when you're thinking of transformation is you think of your ecosystem as vendors and not partners. And I think that's a really big mistake because you don't actually get the collective courage, the collective thought leadership that drives, great progress. So I think that's the one thing I would talk to. But I think when I think of truly transformational strategy, it begins with the courage to how do you reframe the problem, not just solve it. And I think it moves beyond what we might think as category conventions and asks. The question I ask myself is, what are the truth we're not seeing? What is the needs of the customer that we've not met? Why is it that we do the what we do, the where we do, the how we do it? And I think, and that leads you to sometimes stumble upon ideas that shift culture. And not just market share. And I think how leaders can cultivate this mindset is by creating a space for deep listening. And I think deep listening across disciplinary collaboration, because, sometimes marketing teams can just be in their world, but you need to go sit with compliance, sit with the salespeople, sit with the distribution people, sit with the people that create the products and truly get a holistic view of the universe that you're a part of. And I think ask the uncomfortable questions. I mean, me, I ask it all the time. And it's not about always having the answers. But it's about, I think, really nurturing a culture that where I feel bold and empathetic thinking can thrive, because your answers will come from hidden places and the most unexpected places sometimes. So your ability to not have the arrogance to think that you know it all has also I think enabled us to make a lot of transformational shifts.
So the Nudge Institute is helping create a poverty-free India.
Yeah.
And you were on board as more of a mentor, and
Yeah.
now you're shifting gears and becoming more hands-on with them. What are some of the challenges that you feel that the companies which are incubated within, or the organization which are incubated within the Nudge, are facing today? And how are you helping them navigate?
Yeah, I think, working with the Nudge Institute, and they're absolutely phenomenal. And I think, again, for the listeners, look them up. And, if you can be part of the journey, please do. I'm doing a shameless recruitment drive for them. But as an Indian, and I'm very fiercely proud to be one, the audaciousness of the goal to create a poverty-free India could not but help capture both my sense of wonder, but also like, wow, if we could be part of that journey. And I started getting to know social entrepreneurs. And I think they face a unique set of challenges when I think about it. They're trying to solve deep systemic issues with limited resources. They're trying to navigate the tension between purpose and profit, because I think it's fascinating. I've worked for corporates where they've all been about profit and they've struggled with purpose. And then you meet these people that have got such a deep sense of purpose and think, profit is a bastardized word. And many struggle really to build the sustainable models that attract capital without diluting their mission. And then another major hurdle that I find is personal branding, because they're so focused on the work that they often hesitate to put themselves forward.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
Right? Even though visibility is key to unlocking partnerships and funding and trust. So, as part of my mentorship with the Nudge, and we've done this together, I just help them reframe these tensions, and I try and help them understand that purpose and profit are not at odds, and that they can be designed to fuel each other. Really.
Now, speaking about what everyone else is speaking about nowadays is AI.
Yeah.
So you're also one big advocate of AI.
Yeah.
But how do you see it evolving and influencing how brand marketers think about integrating AI? And how do you think it will influence brand marketing?
I think it's a really pertinent question, and it's one that I give a lot of thought. And I'll start off by saying that I didn't know a lot about it. So the first thing I did was to learn and just get in there and try and figure it out, because sometimes it can feel really scary because everyone's throwing acronyms at you, and the pace of disruption has been so fast that I think that we all just need to start learning it. And what I think realized is that AI is just not a new technology layer, but it's actually a catalyst that is forcing brands to reimagine what meaningful connections actually looks like in an age of machine creativity. And the brands, that will be able to pair intelligence with integrity, which is really important. That can, automation, but with emotion, and personalization with purpose. I think they are the ones that will win, because people feel that they'll lose control. And I think you're not going to lose the narrative or control, but I think you've got to be deeply intentional about the role that humans play, the role that the machine plays, and how do you bring that together in a manner that it becomes an and which multiplies versus taking away from each other. That's, in my simple mind, how I think about it.
Okay. Now, a little bit about your your legacy, your vision. Now, you've been across industries, you've worked across sectors, you've been a founder, you've been, you've been a C-suite yourself in a few different roles. What's one lesson that you felt like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting this, that you've learned across all of your portfolios and roles?
You know, the one lesson that I've learned is that your ability to unlearn is just as important as your ability to learn. Every industry, every culture, every phase of leadership, every new team, every new country demands a different version of you. And what made you hugely successful in a role, in a industry, at a point in time, doesn't mean it'll make you successful in your next opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that that one context can sometimes hold you back. And the leaders who thrive, I really believe, are the ones who stay curious and who question their own playbook and evolve, but without ego. So, I just think that the best leaders are not the know-it-alls, but they're the learn-it-alls and who grow with every shift.
Awesome. Now, this next question I know you truly, truly feel passionately about.
Tell me.
Personal branding. So, how can leaders use it to build authentic influence, not only in their businesses or industries, but also amongst their peers, amongst their stakeholders, amongst their investors? Why is it so important?
It took me a long time to understand the power of personal branding. But the person who first asked me this question that got me thinking was Alex Korsky, Akshay, our CEO at
Yeah,
J&J.
J&J.
And he said that, all of you here manage billion-dollar brands, but what about your own brand? And what does your brand stand for? What are your brand values? What is your brand purpose? And I remember thinking, wow, I never thought of myself as a brand. And I think a compelling personal brand narrative, it's not about perfecting the story, it's about owning it. And it's about owning it with all the imperfections, with all the challenges, and with the triumphs and the defeat. And I think what makes it powerful is vulnerability and authenticity. And I think people connect with real stories. They don't connect with polished personas. I think leaders can build authentic influence by being consistent in their message, by aligning actions with words, and sharing the values that guides them, just not their achievements. And someone asked me, so what's your personal brand? And me and my creativity. I thought about it and I said, oh, let me simplify it. And I took my name and I said RICHA, and I said, what does it stand for? And I came up with 5 values that are my personal brand. So R is for resilience, I is for inclusive or innovation, C could be curious, could be courage, could be creative. H has always been humility, humor at times, which I think I'm funny, and A is authenticity. But I think it took me a long time to really hone down on these. But then when I speak about the actions and not words, you got to live by that.
What message would you give to those who want to lead global organizations, teams, and change? So basically, leaders of tomorrow.
The thing I would tell you is that global leadership, in my mind, isn't about commanding across borders. It's about connecting across boundaries. So take a moment in your mind and go, it's not about command, it's about connection.
Two more C's, people.
And it is to do that with empathy in your heart and clarity in your voice. And I say that because to drive meaningful change globally, you must really understand the diverse people that you're leading and you're working with, and across the cultures and the systems and perspectives, and connect with what matters to them. It's that human to human connection. And I think at the same time, you need to communicate your vision with unwavering clarity, so people know where you're going and why it matters. So I think that combination then creates trust and momentum and alignment, whether it's across borders or functions or generations for that matter. But like the most important thing is, I was influenced by reading this book, The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. And they asked him that, how is it that you connect to people, whether they're a president or a sweeper in a hotel? And he said, the biggest mistake we make is that we think of people as a title, but we don't treat people and recognize them as a human. And as long as you can treat people how you want to be treated, if you can respect someone how you want to be respected, therein starts a great relationship. So I really feel like you can call it global leadership, regional leadership, any kind of leadership. But end of the day, being a leader and not a manager is because you have someone who's following you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you are expecting to get followership, then people have to connect with the person that you are. They got to see a bit of, whether it's themselves or their struggles or their values or their background or something that makes them want to connect. And if you can't build that, then you'll just be a manager. And then that's just about it.
Got it. Okay. Before we close, a few rapid fire questions.
Whoa.
Yeah. One book that has significantly shaped your perspective.
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Okay. A city that always sparks inspiration in you.
Oh, you know how much I love to travel. New York City.
Okay. I thought it'd be Hong Kong, but okay, fine.
I've got Hong Kong, I've got Istanbul, I've got Amalfi Coast, I've got,
okay,
I just
fine.
see inspiration in, but yeah.
If you could have dinner with any three people, contemporary or from the past, who would they be and why?
Chris Martin.
Okay.
I love Coldplay, and I love Coldplay because they're not just a band, but they create this incredible interactive and immersive experience. Like they truly are
Absolutely.
the brand, and the lyrics are really meaningful. Speaks to my heart. MS Dhoni. Like I think
Of course.
I am Dhoni's biggest fan. Like I'm sure there are many out
To
there.
all
but
our
I
desis, I think
fight
they will
them.
all agree.
Okay. Why would you not want to have dinner with Dhoni and just talk to him about leadership? Because I always think he walks out onto the field with the dreams of 1 billion people and he handles it with such calm and conviction. I would love to get a dollop of that. And the third person, I think would be Sam Altman, actually. I would love to understand more about his mind and how he's thinking about AI and technology and how he sees the trend.
Your go-to way to de-stress and recharge.
Working out
Yeah,
and
I
listening
know that.
and listening to music while I do that. It could be music, it could be podcasts, but definitely working out.
If your leadership style was a flavor, what would it be?
Chatpata. Chatpata
Yeah,
because chatpata means spicy and it means lip smackingly good, because what I mean by that is it's not boring and you don't know what flavor is gonna hit
Yep.
you at what point.
What's an ideal Saturday afternoon?
I love reading. I think short answer is reading. I will catch up on books and podcasts. And then I also write poetry.
What piece of advice would you give your younger self?
You do you. Everybody else is already taken.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Then the last rapid fire question, though this was actually relaxed, not really rapid, but building a team or shaping a vision, what would you choose and why?
Building a team, hands down, because shaping a vision feels very reactive, but building a team is getting shit done, and I like getting shit done.
I know that about you. Okay, that was it. Thank you so much for our inaugural Global Marketing Leaders podcast. I'm sure the team, our community, is going to really enjoy listening to your insights and the banter we've just had. So thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you for having me. And, this is a space that I truly love. And if I can never be of help to anyone, feel free to reach out. So thank you.
Awesome.